Good afternoon to everybody. Good night, depending where you are. Good morning, depending also where you are. This is a very special session. We have the honor to have Garry Kasparov with us. Garry Kasparov, as you all know, is a Russian chess grandmaster, former world chess champion. He's now a writer. He was champion under the age of 18 when he was age of 12. He became the world champion at the age of 22, the youngest world chess champion in history in 1985. He defended his title 5 times, including a legendary series of matches against arch-rival Anatoly Karpov. Also, as you probably all remember, Kasparov famous matches against the IBM supercomputer Deep Blue in 1996-97 that were key to bringing artificial intelligence and chess into the mainstream. Today, Kasparov is also one of the defendants of human rights and democracy. Uh, he's going to talk to us about deep thinking, where machine intelligence ends and human creativity begins. Garry, thank you very much for being with us, and the floor is yours for your presentation.
Ilan, thank you very much for your kind words. I guess that the topic that I'm covering today, it's now fully introduced by the title Human Creativity and Leadership in the Age of Intelligent Machines. As you can guess, I will be talking about humans and machines, about us fighting machines and collaborating with machines. And I've been speaking on this topic for quite a while now, for many years. But now it's quite a special moment because during the pandemics, so we stuck at one place, and most of our activities, if not all, are online. And it raises the old questions again. We have to revisit them because many of our old fears about machines' dominance and about online activities now could be reconsidered, since we understand that certain things, if we had them before, could be extremely helpful, like driverless cars or robots in the hospital. And I still start with this, with the concept, so this it's about intelligence. And before we move to machines, let me deal with the human aspect, with chess. Why chess, was always considered, one of the most, if not the most, visible sign of intellect. And though it's until recently chess has not been treated with the respect this great ancient game deserves, Hollywood already had chess for many decades as the clear indicator of the intelligence of the character. You can look at this picture, they call it why chess. You have the aliens playing chess. You have vampires playing chess. You have young wizards, Harry Potter playing chess. And, of course, you have great characters. You see Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca, just playing chess, actually analyzing the game. And that sends a clear signal that he is a smart guy. And of course, Kronstein, that's one of the villains in the Bond movies, From Russia with Love, one of my favorite. And it's also a great game, by the way, a real game. They did a good job, played by another world champion, Boris Spassky. And we immediately recognize that this guy will give Bond a hell of a problem. Though, of course, Bond prevails at the end. But still, those were like spontaneous or splashes of chess on the screen. And still it was not treated very seriously. It was not considered to be mainstream game until pandemics. And all of a sudden, pandemics created a boom for the game of chess, thanks to a chess series called Queen's Gambit. No doubt we'll discuss it during the Q&A, because I can tell you, these days, whether I talk about politics, about AI, about decision-making, about Russia, it ends, and very often it starts with the Queen's Gambit, with this show. So that's why, I just wanted just to illustrate it, just to show that, that this topic will not be avoided. And I'm sure, we'll spend a few minutes with Ilan discussing my role as the consultant for the show that all of a sudden became, you know, #1 Netflix show in history, and made a great service for the game of chess. But now, speaking about chess, you know, as I already mentioned, it was always, you know, considered to be a sort of ultimate sign of intellect. But, you know, we should actually consider, you know, this is how the human intelligence had been treated over the last, you know, 150 years during the time of the scientific revolution. And let's go back, actually, not to the computer science, but even earlier, to the end of the 19th century. Alfred Binet, the founder of, founding father, you may call him, inventor of IQ test. And he was fascinated with chess players. And that's, yeah, you can see here on the screen, those are his words. Chess may hold the key to unlocking the secrets of human cognition. Flattering. Truly flattering. Unfortunately, I have to say that it was an exaggeration. The aptitude for playing chess, trust me, it's nothing else than the aptitude for playing chess. But this kind of, you know, this admiration for the game of chess, you know, it's a belief that game of chess has these real keys to the secrets of human cognition, have been inherited by the founding fathers of computer science. Alan Turing, Claude Shannon, Norbert Wiener. They all believed that for machine to prove its intelligence, it had to play well the game of chess, actually to beat the strongest chess players. Ideally, it included the world champion. But all of them had no doubts that for machine to be on the top, to become the best chess player on the planet, it had to emulate the way humans making decisions. So it had to somehow to copy paste the formulas of human cognition. And again, it's they were wrong. Though we cannot blame them, because they had to deal with computers that were primitive. Actually, Alan Turing wrote the first chess program even before the real computer appeared, and he acted like a human CPU. So they didn't see any chance for machines to use brute force to move that far. But you know, it's the history, you know, demonstrated that machines brute force could be enough to solve many problems, including winning chess matches against top grandmasters and the world champion. Though I have to say that it's when I mentioned or I actually used the word solving, it was wrong, because what we learned after our encounters with chess computers, that while the game of chess cannot be solved, and that's exactly why, for instance, Claude Shannon didn't believe that machines could manage playing chess well, since the game of chess is technically it's infinite. Is the number of legal moves is 10 to the 46 power, just insane number. But it's not about winning the game by solving it. It's simply about making fewer mistakes. Machine doesn't have to be perfect. There's no perfection in this universe. It just has to be better. And that's one of the tough lessons that I had to learn by facing IBM's supercomputer in 1997. But before it happened, I would like just to show another picture. Just, you know, it's our first encounter with computers in the 80s. And maybe some of you still have the old chess computers. Often on my Twitter, I could see the photos of these antique machines. Some of them even carried my name, Kasparov chess computers. And in Hamburg in 1985, just a few months before I became world champion, I played a simultaneous exhibition against 32 of these computers. Humans had to execute moves, but I faced 32 machines, and I won all the games. Now, it was not a surprise. To the contrary, the surprise could be if I lost a game or even if I drew one game. But I won all the games, and people thought it was very natural, so big deal. So machines, they're stupid, so they know how to make moves legally, but they're really, really far away. And when I look at this picture, it shows the golden age of human-machine relations, because machines were weak, but my hair was strong. And 12 years later, I faced only one computer, as I mentioned, IBM's Deep Blue. It's a picture from 1997 match, played in New York. And I always remind people that it was the rematch, because the first match we played in Philadelphia a year earlier, and I won it. Just, to keep historical record. So I won the first one, I lost the second one. And every time you hear, as today Ilan said, it was the dawn of artificial intelligence. Speaking about intelligence, let me tell you, Deep Blue was not intelligent at all. It was as intelligent as your alarm clock. Though losing to a $10 million alarm clock didn't make me feel any better. Why I said it was not intelligent? Because it didn't have to. It's not about intelligence. Contrary to what founding fathers of computer science thought many decades ago, it's all about making fewer mistakes. And machine already knew how to play chess. And while it didn't play perfect chess, far from it, but it managed to capitalize on my mistakes. I played much worse than I could, but this is something that happens all the time. Humans are prone to make mistakes, even the best of us. And machine, not so much. By the way, just to understand that this computer was not, a world wonder. I can just tell you that if you have a chess engine, a chess program running on your mobile phone today, most likely it's stronger than Deep Blue. And if you have a chess engine running on your laptop, and you can buy this chess engine for $50, $60 online, it's much stronger than the world champion. Actually, the gap between these kind of chess engines and Magnus Carlsen, the current world champion, is about the same as between Usain Bolt and Ferrari. So this match was, for me, quite a big shock. But I knew that at that time I was still playing, at least not worse, probably even better than Deep Blue. And of course, I got really upset. Losing was always tough. So I confessed in my book that I still is a sore loser. And also, you can probably, forgive me for being so arrogant at the final press conference, because it was my first loss, not against the machine, but period, the first loss of any match. But I wanted to play another match because I believed, that's, I deserved it. It's I won the first one, lost the second one. I wanted the rubber match. But IBM made a good choice by retiring the blue. They knew that they couldn't do better. They already won one match, and they knew that the battle could be unclear. So I was desperately trying to find the blue. So what's happened with this computer? So, and eventually I discovered that it's now making sushi in the JFK airport, Terminal 5, if you are interested. I reside in New York, normal days, not during the pandemics. And I fly very often from this terminal, love sushi, never ate there. And by the way, I told you that Deep Blue was not intelligent, but it was intelligent enough to actually find a really good spot for making sushi and making a profit. So, jokes aside, so what was my choice? So I spent time licking my wounds, ruminating about the future of my beloved game. And I thought, so why should we be so upset? It's probably inevitable. As I said, machines were not dominant at the time, but I knew already it's happening. It's like, it would take a few years. I was right. It took about 7 or 8 years for machines to dominate. and we played a few more matches in between, with a certain success. I played 2 more matches. They both were drawn, but the end was there. So I already knew the outcome. I already recognized that machines would dominate the game. So you cannot beat them, join them. And I came up with a concept next year in 1998 that I called advanced chess. The idea was, to bring together humans and computers, and play together, combined, human plus machine versus another human plus machine. It's I thought it could actually help us playing perfect chess, because if you have human intuition and experience and machines brute force, it could help us to avoid stupid mistakes, and to go very deep in analyzing the position, human ideas, creativity, and then machine helps you to navigate. Not so easy, because it's not just about the human strengths, creativity, fantasy, and machine's speed. It's about the process. Superior process is the key element. And that's what we learned in chess. And many experiments that we had, they proved that at the end of the day, the weaker player with average computer could beat stronger player with a faster machine if he or she has a superior process. Because at the end of the day, humans and machines could create some sort of a centaur. It's a combination. And recognizing the process, the interface, and finding the way to compensate for machines' deficiencies. This is the human role. And sometimes the strong players, they had the problem of recognizing machine superiority in many areas, and trying to push it where you simply has to let it go. It's a nice flaw, and you just have to help it navigating, but not to interfere in the process. Yes, in many cases we will belong to the last few decimal places, but our role is still indispensable. And there were few experiments, and even some studies, and one study actually was made by Credit Suisse in 2014, analyzing this the game, and coming up with the same conclusion. So they even used, what now they call the Kasparov law. Weak human plus machine per superior process was greater than a strong computer, and remarkably greater than a strong human plus machine with an inferior process. So it has been already used and applied, in business, especially in finance, just to recognizing that, finding the right angle, so right mechanism, right interface for human and machine to collaborate. That could actually make real breakthrough. So we can actually summarize this, by just recognizing that all computers, now using chess as an example, they go through the same stages. The stage one, machines are just they're too weak, it's just like a joke, a tool, a toy. Then, yes, they can play chess the way you saw it in 1985 images. But still they are laughingly weak. And then we move to the third stage, which is, it's where we have real competition, and it's a shortest one. So shortest phase. It's like a dot on the timeline of history. But that's what makes us most exciting, because it's a competition, it's a fight, and then it ends with the same result. Machines are better, much better forever after. So we can just go through this cycle. But there's one thing before we move on I want to emphasize, because the AI is traditionally called artificial intelligence, and I don't like it. I think augmented intelligence is a better term for numerous reasons. I can pick up two. One is it's a better reflection of human-machine collaboration, but also it sounds friendly, doesn't it? It sounds friendly, and it doesn't scare us off, because one of the problems is that we have we have so many stories that are just terrorizing our minds. It's the Hollywood production and the army of doomsayers that's telling us that the end is near, so just around the corner, one more generation of machines and we all are dead. This is the end of humanity. It's not a single shred of evidence that it's happening, because humans are still playing an indispensable role. AI is not a harbinger of utopia or dystopia. AI is not a magic wand, but it's not a Terminator or Matrix. It's not a ticket to heaven. It's not a savior, but it's not going to open the gates of hell. It's another tool created by humans. And it goes through these four stages, as I put it on this slide, about brute force machines. And most of machines now are still brute force. 99% is still operating with brute force. Then you go to smarter machines that could partner with experts using superior processes. That's already the stage of advanced chess in business. And then we're now gradually moving into a new world where operators will guide groups and flocks of AI algorithms and just helping them to navigate. And I put a telescope, an old-fashioned device, a tool that helped us to study the skies. And I think it's a relevant, comparison, because its telescope enhances our vision. AI is helping us to get smarter, and it's what's important is how we use it. If you put telescope, just looking down, you will not see anything. It will not work. So it's about directing it. It's a right spot. That's where you can actually have the maximum effect. I believe that while we know that computers will eventually prevail in anything that we can call a closed system. Chess, Japanese chess called shogi, Go, Texas Hold'em poker, video games like Dota or StarCraft. But it's not, the end of the world, for a simple reason. Because while machines can prevail within human design framework, there are no indications that machines will be able to transfer information from one closed system to another. That's where humans' role is still indispensable, and I don't think it's going to change in a foreseeable future. So now I just wanted to have a little just to go over it and just to present a picture that could make you feel probably better. So machines don't have to be perfect, only better. That's important, because it will help us to recognize that machines will always leave room for humans to add value. Machine could be perfect in making 95% of the good decisions, 96, 97, but still there's a room. And since nothing in this universe is 100% perfect, so we always have a room. And we also have to recognize that we cannot demand machines getting perfect. So if we expecting driverless cars to 100% perfection, we'll never have them. But they will perform better than humans, and that's very important. AI. I suggest we move from artificial intelligence to augmented intelligence, because we're getting smarter. If we know how to use it, we get smarter. And that's, at the end of the day, what's exactly what we want from any technology that we developed in the past. So yeah, it's not making us faster or it's making us stronger as technologies of the past, but it helps us to upgrade our called software because our hardware is probably, just it's a much bigger challenge. Though maybe eventually, through biotechnology and AI, we can do it. But right now, we're talking about our software, and AI can help us to become smarter. Now, what is also important, that AI will do things differently, not like humans. You don't expect AI to go through the same process. That's wrong. Yeah, at one point we have to accept that there's no full explainability, because at the end of the day, it's about bottom line. So it's, if AI goes through some process that we cannot comprehend, bottom line is what matters. Now, also, intelligent tech is easier to use. It requires less training, which offers people like me, I'm 57, some hope. I don't have to be as savvy as the computer experts 20, 30 years ago, but I can contribute my wisdom, my skills, my experience, and that might be very useful in this human-machine collaboration. And also, AI will do more rote work, freeing us to be more creative and strategic, more human. Because, so many jobs that we're doing today, let's agree, they are not most creative. And AI, it just, helps us to contribute to our work, our human uniqueness, our creativity, our ability to fantasize, something that machines cannot do, and that's where they will need human guidance. So the conclusion is, we are not being replaced. To the contrary, we are being promoted. And to wrap up my presentation, I told you about Hollywood and about these horrible images of the Hollywood, and you all have them in mind. But sometimes, just you have to fight fire with fire. I think you are just confused by looking at these images, because you say, so what does it prove? It's the contrary what Mr. Kasparov has been saying for the last 25 minutes, because it's a Terminator. Yes, it's a Terminator. By the way, the picture, in the corner, it's a real one. It's not a Photoshop. I played with the Terminator in his office in 2003. He's a big chess fan. He loves the game. That was a mandatory in the education program for his children. I think I was smart enough not to push too hard, and it was a quick draw. So I guess it was so encouraging for Arnold Schwarzenegger that 6 months later, he ran for the governorship of California and won. Now, going back to these pictures, if Terminator 1 was, about humans versus machines, about fight, to death, the second and the third movies, the sequels, they were exactly about the idea of human-machine collaboration. And in both sequels, these smart humans helped outdated machine. Though in Arnold's case, we know it's this old but not obsolete. Still, it was an old machine facing a much newer and much faster and much smarter version. But with the human's assistance, in both cases, it prevailed. And I think that's something that leaves us, reasons for optimism. So instead of being worried about Terminators, the real danger is too much worry. It's our human anxiety and fear of unknown. And fear makes us cautious, when what we really need is more ambition and risk-taking. There are positives and negatives to every powerful new technology, and AI is no exception. But we will make more of the positives and minimize the negatives if we move forward more quickly. Our intelligent machines will help us realize our grandest ideas. And that's what we need most of all. Because there's one thing only humans can do, and machines cannot, even in sleeping mode. That's dream. So let us dream big. Thank you.
Very, very, very interesting, and This is exciting to hear you talk about AI and human creativity and how we can collaborate. Let me start this conversation just putting you to a place more close to Credit Suisse, to our clients, to our investors, which is financial markets. You know, and that in financial markets, it has become an applied field for artificial intelligence. If you want, augmented intelligence. You have computers doing a lot of the investment, doing a lot of the decisions. You have algorithms also taking decisions. We have portfolio managers with a lot of anxiety, as you mentioned. They're saying, what are we going to do? They're going to replace us. We're not going to do anything. People will just invest. You have a program, they're going to invest. So, what I wanted to hear from you, given your experience in chess, in other places, in the case of the financial markets, in the decisions where you have computers and uh, all of these quantitative computers, uh, how do you see the collaboration there? So, for example, be more specific. You mentioned that computers work better in closed systems. Is this a closed system? Can we close this system, financial markets and investment? Second, are investors being promoted? Because at the end you say, we are promoted. They are doing the work, but we are promoted. We have space for creativity. Is this also valid in financial markets, in investment? So I'm pushing you closer to financial markets.
Uh, let me start with your question about closed systems. Of course not. Financial markets, it's just they have too many unknowns. Closed systems is it's those are the frameworks where you have a very strict rules, and both sides must follow them. And the number of opportunities, though technically unlimited, but still allows machine to minimize the number of mistakes. Again, machines are dominating in closed systems because they make fewer mistakes, not because they can solve the whole system. But financial market is more like in a combination of closed systems. And you have to see it's a different variations. Not that humans can calculate as fast as computers. We don't have to. Because the trick is that I have access to machine, you have access to the machine. Everybody else at this conference has access to the computer. A machine can keep collecting data. But there is one very important element of deficiency of any computer. It doesn't know where to stop. And your intuitive recognition of the moment that here I stop and I don't want any more data. I have to make a decision now. So because I win time, I do it quicker. And even if my decision will not have enough, ingredients of enough data material, still, I can get an advantage. Now, recognizing this moment is exclusively human. Machine doesn't understand why this information is enough or not enough. It will keep, adding data because it's more data is good. And also it's about an art of asking questions. Machine can ask questions. It just doesn't know what questions are relevant. And that's why, I already mentioned, yes, we will belong to last few decimal places. We shouldn't be upset because it's like, having a very, very powerful gun. My apology for using this military example. And all you can do is slightly alter the route for the bullet in the barrel. Just, 0.1 degree, whatever, just tiny. But 1 mile away, if it's a powerful gun, it could end up with 10 meters of the target. So yes, we will be doing the fine tuning, but it's, that's where the difference between one human operating with a computer and another one will tell. So There will be winners and losers, but it's the result actually more than ever will be decided by human creativity, because we all have access to similar computers. You don't have an ability to actually dominate because you have more computing power. It's roughly even. And I see that these financial markets offer more opportunities, for creative thinking. I just can tell you that for 2 years I've been working with Citigroup, and recently they introduced Grandmaster Index, and I was part of this development with my team. And it's the two key components that I suggested is, one is just a different kind of explainability, so not perfect but better than many others, and actually doing it more dynamic, because I believe that today dynamic factors could prevail over the accumulated factors of the past. Still, it's there's always room for creativity, and as you can see, one of the largest groups in the world just thought that chess experience could be useful. Actually, this cooperation started after one of my lectures for the managers several years ago.
You know that I hired some chess players and chess champions because I believe is important for our job too. So I recognize how important it is, and I think the collaboration between the machines and the human creativity is essential here. Um, Let me go to other aspects of the game. You were you were known in the chess game as somebody that was very prepared. Sometimes your preparation was legendary, uh, but you also had the ability to face different situations where things were unbalanced. Uh, People tell me some of the games here. I'm not a chess uh, expertise, but somebody tell me your preparation is legendary. For example, they say he gained 10 of the 1995 match. You probably know what what they
Yeah.
mean, where your preparation was very good. But in other cases where you could work with different situations, like your game against Topalov. So for us here, one thing is essential is to know how much to prepare and how much to think about adaptation. This is very important. Maybe you could give us some hints of preparation versus adaptation.
um, I I'm not sure I would use these terms as opposing ones. You just said adaptation and preparation, because what I learned from my chess experience is that preparation somehow mysteriously helped me even in the situation that I could not predict during my preparation. It's now I'm looking often at my old analysis in the 80s or the 90s now with the computer, and I said, that was not a good analysis. That's a joke now. A machine is laughing. It's laughing loud just looking at these moves. So something that I believed was, the magical sword, it was a broken knife. But because of this preparation, because I could be so deeply engaged with the game, somehow it helped me. Again, I don't know what is this connection, how it works. It's some sort of a mystery, because I prepared for something else, but it happened, during the game, that this preparation mysteriously, was extremely useful. Um, and that's why I think it's just, preparation always, always helps. But you should remember, no matter how much time you spend on preparation, that the climax of the game most likely will force you to make a decision in the situation that you could not predict. So expecting that you can outplay your opponent by simply preparing everything at home, that's that's a road to perdition. That's the road to disaster. It's what is important during preparation is actually not to calculate every move to the end. You cannot do that. but to understand how can I create conditions of this game, whether it's a chess game, whether it's a football game match, whether it's the business competition, and God forbid war. So, but how can I create conditions where my strengths, and I was traditionally very aggressive, dynamic player, can actually be dominant factor. While my opponent's strengths, you mentioned Anatoly Karpov, who was a more defensive player. It's like in tennis, strong serve, rushing to the net, playing from the back line. Both could be number one, but it's very important that you look for conditions in chess, at the chessboard, or in your business environment that will benefit you specifically, your company, to make sure that your strengths will play a much larger role and your weaknesses, because we all have some sort of weaknesses and our opponents could benefit from them. But those weaknesses will be either hidden or not as relevant as the factors that offers you an edge. So this is a key. When you have strongest teams facing each other, it depends very much on if you're talking about football, about coaching, or about strategy. So how can you force opponents to play your game? And again, thinking that specific style gives you an advantage, no. I mean, just look at, I mentioned tennis. Look at football. So you have two, opposite styles. Of course, Brazil, jogo bonito, and Italy, catenaccio. Brazilians were 5 times world champions, Italians 4 times. They played many times, and sometimes Brazilians won, sometimes Italians won. Actually, my first memories of World Cup was 1970. I was 7, and I remember the final. Brazil crashing Italy 4-1, and Pelé scoring its early goal. So, but again, you do not have to go against your instincts, against your nature to follow some advice. To the contrary, you have to try to change the environment or to create an environment that will benefit you.
You mentioned during your presentation the importance of process. When you talk about strategy, how much process is important in the game? Yeah, you mentioned process when you joined humans and computers, and process was important. But during the game, process. Do you think it was important, or this is more of a strategy?
Uh, no, it's the yeah. No, when I talked about process in my presentation, it was more about it's about human machine collaboration. So that's where you needed a good interface, to understand how to cooperate with machine. Now, process in the game itself, I would rather call it discipline. So how can keep your concentration? How can you keep the game under control? Because it's you know you play the game, and I always go back to chess because that's my background. So you have a certain amount of time to complete all the moves, and thanks to the Queen's Gambit show, people know that there are chess clocks. You have to push the clock and then make a move. Yes. Now, how do you decide what is the key moment to spend more time? This is this is an ability to understand or to feel the climax of the game. That's what actually makes all the difference between good player, great player, and the best player. Because you know exactly where you concentrate. That's it. That means you are in control. You understand this process, and you recognize, now I have to invest all I have. So this is my time, my energy, because you cannot do it all the time. So you just feel this is the climax. This is like the road and the nexus. The choice you make now will decide the rest of the game.
It's interesting that you mentioned discipline, and the way you describe it, it always reminds me of tennis players or other players where they talk about the discipline and how they think about it, and it's what distinguishes the champion to the good player on how he deals with that. And here you mentioned the control of the time. It's very interesting this. But I
Yeah,
have to go here. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that my late mother always told me that first you lose your game psychologically, and then it happens on the board. So you lose your ability to fight, and somehow in your mind the game already lost, and then it happens on the board.
That's very true in everything, in our work, and of course in what you mentioned. I have to ask you what you already know. We're going to ask you about the Queen's Gambit. It
What a
has to be the
surprise!
case. We want to know, you were a consultant.
Yes.
This is a great series. Everybody loved it. So tell us a little bit about what happened there, how good it was, uh, what it brought to you. You were a very young player, champion. Suddenly we see this this person winning, also very young. It has its vices, its difficulties in life, psychologically. At the same time, it was also very uh, uh, young players, and with all this energy, they are winning very young relative to the. So tell us a little bit about the show and what is important.
Um, yeah, let me start where I finished by presenting my slides when I talked about great contribution to the game of chess by the show. Because chess for a long time was, as I mentioned, was not treated properly. And one of the problems, people looked at great players, say Bobby Fischer, and naturally, uh, uh, Elizabeth Harmon, had some resemblance to Fischer. She is female, but still America, about the same time.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
author of the book, Walter Tevis, who was a big fan of Fischer and a club player, so he definitely had Fischer's story in mind. But look at Fischer. He got crazy. That's, people said, yeah, chess is maybe not good for mental health. Uh, Now, the movie actually, just proves the opposite. When I wrote my essay about Fischer 10 years ago, my point was that chess didn't make Fischer crazy. Chess actually helped him to stay sane for much longer than he could probably manage without chess. And what we saw in the series is that Elizabeth Harmon improved. When you look at her character, is just at her behavior improved thanks to chess. She could fight back against her dependence on substances, on the alcohol, on these green tablets. And because of chess, she actually managed to find her spot in the world, to build friendship. So chess served her well. And now I will not be surprised to see a real boom among girls, because parents will no longer see chess as a potentially damaging factor for their lives. Now, my my story, just in the whole series, started with a phone call from Bruce Pandolfini. He's a famous coach who was also consultant in the show. Who invited me to meet Scott Frank. And I knew Scott because he had few famous hits, Minority Report, for instance, or Logan. And it's from X-Men series. And we had this meeting in the restaurant on the Upper West Side. I was there with my wife, and there was a team there. And his original idea was, Garry, would you play Borgov, the Soviet champion? You were the world champion. Look, I like the way you just operated the board. And it was very tempting, I have to say. And he tried even to make it the offer even sweeter. He said, "Oh, Garry, there's a role for Borgov's wife there. We can take Dasha. We just you can two of you play there." But we said sorry. Yeah. No way. It takes 2 to 3 months, out of my life. So I couldn't afford. I had my arrangements. at that time, before pandemics, we could travel around the world. So I already had my commitments. No, I said, I had to turn your offer down. Sorry. But I said, I could help you to make it, just make it better. Because I read Walter Tevis' book. And while Tevis was a chess fan and an amateur player, still some of the descriptions of chess there, they're not perfect, especially when we're talking about top level chess. And also, there's a very important component of the book is the Soviet chess. So that was my contribution. I looked at the top games, so the all the most important games to the last one. She played against Borgov in Moscow, and I tried to keep the book description, but I brought real games because Scott thought that it would be very important for him to actually have the to have the chess board, so to show the chess moves. Not so much, but still, there were you could see it was real chess. And I guaranteed that it would be, the quality of the moves, would be at the level of the best players in the world. I picked up many Grandmasters games, and in some cases I even worked with my assistant, and we added new lines, worked with computer. So that's what happened in the last game in Moscow. It was a real game, game from 1993, Interzonal, played by an American player, Patrick Wolf, and Ukrainian Grandmaster Vasily Ivanchuk. And next day after the show was aired, Patrick sent me a message saying, I recognize the game. It's my game. How on earth you can find it? I said, Patrick, I found it because I didn't look for the names. I looked at the description of the game. I looked at the positions, and I thought, so I need to be as close as I can to the original transcript. But I couldn't do it exactly as it was, but I had 7 or 8 options, and I picked up this one. There's no special, reference to you, Patrick. But he was, of course, very, very proud, because I wanted to make sure that there's a room also for the adjourned game. The games were adjourned at the time, and for the call from New York to come through, and just to make sure position was complicated.
But Garry,
some people
did you
criticized
include?
me for that, saying, Gary, it was wrong because KGB would overhear the call and they would inform Borgov on time. I said, no. It couldn't happen because I know KGB, they got a call, but they need to report to their bosses. And before, it goes through the whole, whole chain of command, it will be too late for Borgov to learn it. Yes. Yeah. And so we looked at the environment of the games, so it was all shot in Berlin, with few shots in Canada to show Kentucky, but Orphanage and everything else, and the matches, it all is Berlin. And I think that's somehow pandemics helped, because people, they were they were just at their homes, they looked at the screen. It's not just, it's a great show. I think it was very original, because most of the shows, is a fantasy, sci-fi, thrillers. Here was a real story. You had a girl from orphanage in Kentucky, and good characters. I think the freshness, that's what helped the show to become so good. And I enjoyed working with Scott. We're very, very good friends. But for everybody, who's asking, oh, now what about the sequel? I think the story ends there. So let's not push hard. And I also, made few recommendations there. It's just about, the bringing the KGB guys, some dialogues there. And I thought it was very important to have this final moments of the movie when she escaped from the CIA guy and just left, him behind, and joined old Russians playing, in the park. And it was great. And I said, they, instead of telling her Harmon, they had to ask her in Russian, Lisa. So that's this. And she looked at the man in front of her. By the way, was a very famous Soviet actor in the 80s. And you could feel that the world of chess, it's her domain, it's realm. And she felt so comfortable. And I think we should leave it there.
No, that's a great story. Great story. I thought you will include your own games, your own moves in some of them, but you choose somebody else's game.
Look,
So that's
look, I would, but I just, I had to follow the strict, instructions from the book. For instance, the Queen Sacrifice. So this, I tried to stick with these games. I was criticized for not including Judith Polgar's games. So it's just, this, yeah, I have to accept that. I have to accept this criticism. Though again, I didn't look at the names. I just, I went through the database. Here is this. It's the what Walter Tevis wrote. Here is this, how I could put the pieces, and I had to find positions that were as close as possible.
I see. Well, let me ask you a question. Some people have. I mean, you were a great chess player, world champion, uh, and you were very well prepared. Some people say your game is more aggressive in the sense that you went to the attack. Um, and the curiosity is to know when you deal with your personal finances, with your money and what you do, are you also aggressive in terms of preparing or thinking, or this is part of your life that you're not dealing in the same way?
Look, I learned a few lessons in this life, and one of them is you always have to know the level of your ignorance, and you should know exactly so where your expertise ends, and you have to rely on those who are more savvy on the subject. So as for our family affairs, it's run by my wife. So I fully rely on her. She does a much better job. Though, as I mentioned, I'm very happy to look at certain opportunities and offer my advice. But I'm a big picture man, and in finance, being a big picture, it's good, but sometimes, actually, very often, you need to do micromanagement, and I'm not very good at micromanagement. So that's why, I know where to stop. But I'm very happy to just, to look at the big picture and to sense, what's the right way to right move and where I have to go. But execution of the idea, should stay in the hands of those who are better equipped.
Yeah, there is room for micromanagement and details, and there's room for
Yeah,
big picture, and those two are very important in our job and our life.
yeah. Absolutely.
The
That's exactly
last
what I
question.
said. You don't have to press your luck, because it's this, it's, exactly what you're good at. And it doesn't mean that you have to change. So just make sure that your decision making expertise stays within your area, and just do not overlap, do not cross the border.
You were no, we are getting close to the end, but I wanted to focus in the last question on another part of your career where you were very active defending democracy, defending human rights, uh, and I don't know what does it mean now, but now we have some issues that are important. For example, how much government should be involved in regulating our artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence? Is there a role for governments? This is one aspect. The other aspect that is important is to know, for example, today, collection of data, of information is with the big tech companies. Should we regulate them too? So those are the questions for you that have dealt with freedom and have dealt with democracy.
Ilan, you left, the most complicated questions that do not have a perfect answer to the very end of our conversation. I can start, just a new lecture on that. For 4 years, I've been working with Avast Software. I'm their security ambassador. So I'm not the greatest expert on cybersecurity, but I'm good at analyzing the big picture. And I've been attending many conferences, presenting this, exactly these elements that of the problem that you just raised now. As I said, there is no easy solution. But what's very important that only now we are reaching a point where public wants to understand what's coming next. Because you talked about government regulations and about data collection. I had numerous articles I could recommend for those who are interested. I had an article in The Economist 2 or 3 months ago when I talked about the growing gap between political system and new technology, because new technology is 24/7, it's instant, and the elections, it's a longer cycle, and so you can see there are many conflicts. New technology always created gaps in the socio-economic system of every state. Time, you can go all the way back to book printing at the end of 15th century. It brought the religious wars in Europe for 100 or so years. So speaking about censorship and a collection of data, I also had few latest articles for those who are more interested in the subject. I can address you to my regular blog it's on my Twitter, but also on Avast blog. I've been doing it every second month, a big article about data protection, about cybersecurity, about individual freedom, about the customers. It's right now we approach the point where we have this triangle. We have government, we have IT giants, the corporations that in control of this data, and we have the public. And the public is connected to being both customers and voters, constituencies. And the relations in this triangle are yet to be determined. So and there's no easy solution. It's, for those who say, oh, we can stop the problem by doing to Facebook what Americans did to Standard Oil and just split it. No, it's not the same. It's not, manufacturing. It's not oil company. It's just, it's an information. And I think we are at the point where we have to start asking questions and looking for compromises. Because there will be no easy solution that can satisfy everybody. And those who are pushing for government regulations, they're simply wrong, because this you cannot control it. It's just the whole idea. It's just it adds to human liberty and ability to be creative, and an attempt to put government regulations, I think, will give an advantage to the countries where like China, for instance, where the information data, individual data, is not sacred to be protected as in the free world. So I would love to move deeper on the subject, but it will take many hours, and we don't have this time now.
Maybe we'll have it for the next conference.
I will be
We're gonna
delighted.
invite
So
you.
that's how you can hear. I'm getting really excited because that's a nexus of so many of my activities. It's about human rights. It's about consumers. It's about cybersecurity. It's just and this is the key. And it's also about history. So this is the classical big picture where I feel it's the most comfortable, as fish in the water.
Yeah, and when we think about, for example, my background was the central bank. It's also big picture, cybersecurity, how much, if you regulate, if you don't regulate. Those are fascinating issues
Absolutely.
for everybody. And I must say, Garry, that last hour we just spent now has been fascinating to me. It was an honor to have this conversation with you. And I'm sure our clients, our viewers here have really enjoyed this time. And I would like to thank you for your participation and for engaging and making this time so interesting.
Thank you. Thank you, Ilan.
Thank you. And hopefully next time I'll bring you to talk about what we just ended now.
Yeah, let's
So
say it's not the end of the conversation. It's the end of the chapter.
very good.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon, good
Thank
night,
you.
good morning for everybody. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, Mr. Ringer, thank you very much. It was perfect.